He moved the mop with the same practiced motion he did every morning. No stripes, no insignia, just a pair of coveralls and boots worn down enough to squeak faintly on the polished concrete. To the young privates walking past, he was nothing more than the janitor, a leftover ambient figure in the background. They cracked jokes as he passed, left coffee cups behind without a second glance, never once asking his name, never thinking to care. But one morning during an inspection, the usual routine was shattered. The base fell silent as a visiting general stepped into the hallway. When his eyes landed on the janitor, he came to a complete stop. Then, unexpectedly, he stepped forward and saluted. Before we go on, tell me in the comments, what's the most unforgettable sign of respect you've ever seen or received? And if you believe real accounts of service, stillness, and dignity deserve to be heard, subscribe to Hidden Sparks, a space where respect is more than just a word. Everyone called him Mac, not because they knew him, just because it was simpler than learning his full name. He never corrected them, never asked for anything different. Every morning at 0500 sharp he was there, long before the base stirred, pushing a rickety maintenance cart louder than his voice. The ID clipped to his chest read, "Facility Support," but few ever looked close enough to catch the last name below. To the young soldiers stationed at Fort Russell, Mac was the janitor, an invisible presence unless something needed cleaning. He drifted through the base like a ghost, always working, never interrupting. He polished the floors until they mirrored the ceiling tiles, scrubbed the latrines others left behind in ruin. When inspectors came through, the praise went to the staff sergeant overseeing logistics, unaware the man they stepped around daily was the true keeper of that shine. Mac never grumbled, never showed weariness, never uttered a word. The only anomaly was the old patch stitched just inside the flap of his coveralls, barely visible, weathered, its colors dulled by time. Most never noticed it. Those who did assumed it was a factory mistake or leftover gear, but it wasn't. It was a SEAL Team 5 patch. He didn't wear it to be seen. He wore it because some things aren't meant to be removed. It was a Thursday morning when it happened, during a surprise readiness inspection, the kind of visit that made even senior officers sweat and sent recruits scrambling to tidy up and line up. A general, 4 stars, commanding presence, was making rounds, flanked by aides and strict protocol. Everything had to be perfect. Flags in place, halls gleaming, uniforms sharp. Mac had already spent hours cleaning before sunrise. By the time the convoy rolled in, he was outside the command office, polishing in slow, sweeping arcs. No one told him to stop. No one told him to move. He knew where to stay out of sight, but fate deviated. The general's party turned unexpectedly, heading down the central corridor, directly into the space Mac was working. Everyone froze. Junior officers hesitated. Should they tell him to move or act like he wasn't there? Then the general halted, mid-step, motionless. He looked at the man bent over the mop, coveralls dusted and cleaner, boots darkened by polish. And his expression changed. Not confusion, recognition. Sergeant McAllen. Mac didn't answer right away. He straightened up slowly, leaned on the mop like an old post, and looked up. "Morning, General." The aides exchanged glances, puzzled. The general's hand tightened slightly, like he'd seen a ghost he hadn't realized he missed. Without pause, the general stepped forward. His heels snapped together, and he delivered a flawless, crisp salute. The hallway went dead silent. Mac, mop in one hand, returned the salute with the other. No flair, no pride, just mutual aged respect, earned and quiet. When the general lowered his arm, he turned to his team. "Gentlemen, this man served in Ramadi. SEAL Team 5, Bronze Star, 2 tours under my command. We do not walk past men like him." No one moved. Soldiers farther down the corridor instinctively straightened. Some turned, slowly realizing what they'd overlooked for months. Mac nodded. faintly adjusted his grip on the mop, and stepped aside. He didn't stay to hear what came next. But the salute lingered in the air long after the inspection team moved on. After that morning, everything changed. Mac didn't. He still arrived before sunrise, still cleaned the same halls, still left the break room better than he found it. He never mentioned the salute, never repeated what the general had said. He didn't need to. But the silence around him shifted. Now, when soldiers passed him in the corridor, they stepped aside, not from fear, but from something deeper. One private held the door for him. Another picked up a cup before Mac got there. Small things. But they meant everything. Jensen, now fully aware of who Mac was, started walking that hallway after hours. Not to ask questions, just to listen. Occasionally, Mac would mention a name, a unit, a desert town, where life or death once teetered. He never made war sound glorious. He spoke like someone who remembered the scent of blood, the heat on sand, and the weight of a brother's final breath. One night, Jensen brought him a new mop head. Mac nodded in thanks, then sat on the bucket edge, cleaning the handle like it was a rifle he hadn't touched in years. Jensen stayed quiet. After a moment, Mac spoke, without looking up. "You don't mop floors for the shine. You do it so the next man through doesn't slip." Jensen wasn't sure if it was literal. He didn't ask. But the line stayed with him long after graduation. Some men lead from podiums, others lead in silence. And a rare few lead with a mop in hand and battle in their past. Mac never sought recognition. He didn't wear his service on his sleeve. But the way he carried himself, quiet, exact, grounded, spoke louder than any rank. For months, they saw. Only a janitor. One salute showed them a warrior, not because Mac changed, because they finally saw him. In a world obsessed with medals and noise, Mac reminded everyone, true service doesn't end when the uniform comes off. It continues, unseen, in the margins where the work still gets done without applause. That salute wasn't just a gesture. It was a correction, a reminder that greatness doesn't always wear ribbons. Sometimes it wears old boots and cleans up behind others in silence, and sometimes the people we overlook most are the very ones who laid the path we walk on. So let me ask, have you ever underestimated someone only to learn they carried more history, more sacrifice, more honor than you ever imagined? Think of them now, a teacher, a neighbor, a quiet relative, someone who never talked about their past yet shaped yours. Drop their name in the comments. Let them live on, not through medals, but through memory. And if stories like this matter to you, if you believe quiet honor still deserves a voice, then subscribe to Hidden Sparks, because here we don't forget the men who never needed to be remembered to make a difference.